So, Paul, you are the professor of health humanities. Uh, what does that mean?
I'm the Professor of Health Humanities at the University of Nottingham, and I'm based at the Institute of Mental Health. So, um, back in 2006, I decided that we needed a much more inclusive approach to how the arts and humanities can inform and transform human health. um, Previously, we'd heard from medical humanities, expressive therapies, arts for health, and so on. But I thought there was much more to be done. So I founded the field of health humanities, which is now a global field. So I should have a big computer screen and a white cat. But I don't lead it in that way. It's a thought leadership. So around the world, people are looking at how different contributors can improve health through the arts and humanities. So that's the medics. It's people in clinical services. It's for me, more importantly, actually, is the public. So I like to promote the public in public health as as agents of change, not simply passive recipients of expert knowledge.
Right. Okay. So, by the arts, what does that entail? What's
Well, it
involved?
entails a great deal, Vanch. I mean, you know, in a way, there are a number of threads to this. So there will be the research side. So there's lots of research going on around the world in terms of the particular benefits for physical and mental health of different kinds of creative practices, from singing and dancing, reading and writing, even watching films on Netflix, etc. Through to other areas such as crafts, crafting, etc., etc. So at the moment, there's lots of research. In fact, there's so much research, I can't even see it all. But I am with Paul Cadets, the editors in chief of the Encyclopedia of Health Humanities. So the last 5 years, we've built an encyclopedia in this field. So we are capturing more and more of the brilliant work that's going on around the world. So there's the research side, and then there's the, if you will, the communication side through theory, through writing books about the different practices. So my own series, which is doing really well, it's called Arts for Health with Emeralds. Check it out online. And there are 16 volumes in that series, with I think we're looking at about 30 in the end. And these are for the public, because I wanted a series of books which help the public to take opportunities to benefit from different arts and humanities practices.
Interesting. So, when we're looking into the literature and the arts and the research that you've done, how does this exactly relate to mental health, and how can we use these things to at least give us some peace of mind?
Well, I mean, peace of mind is hard one, Vanch. I think in the current period, I think nearly everybody on the planet is wondering, how do we get peace of mind? Peace in terms of nation states and the conflicts we're having, but also peace at a deeper level. What I would say is that obviously I can't detail all the different research that not just ourselves but others are doing in this area in terms of mental health benefits. Let me give you one example where I think it shows a really good step forward. Is the work I led with Aardman. I think nearly everybody on the planet knows the company Aardman, and Shaun the Sheep, Wallace and Gromit, all those wonderful animations. So we had a big team basically that worked with 42 young people to co-construct short animations to begin conversations about life's challenges at transition point into adulthood, from school, etc., to going to university or working. And our young people basically told us there were 5 elements to life's challenges that really concern them at this point. And with Aardman, we built 5 short animations, which reached over 17 million within 4 months of release during the pandemic.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it was fantastic, a fantastic project. We got £1 million in funding from the Arts and Humanities Research Council, and we measured the effect. In other words, we were trying to increase what's called mental health literacy of young people. That means trying to enable young people to know more about the kinds of things in life that cause stress and can cause mental health problems down the line. And then we had qualitative and quantitative research in that, and the science, if you will, of the project showed that looking at these animations actually increased people's mental health literacy, their confidence about helping others, their willingness to seek help themselves. Really important findings. The other, I guess, key thing, not to go on too much about the research side, but the other key thing for us was, good mental health is not just about seeing your doctor, seeing, the clinicians, as it were, but it's also about how the whole nation joins in that enterprise, including our creative industries have a responsibility and an opportunity to do great things. So animations are very attractive, Vange, aren't they? And you can get messaging across with a bit of humor and a bit of fun. It doesn't have to be all very adult world, boring, warning lights, etc. And our young people are agents of change. They're not simply recipients of change from the adult world. So our project was co-constructed with young people, and they voiced 5 of the animations, the 5 animations. It wasn't actors, the voices of 5 of our young people.
Wow. What were the 5 challenges that you mentioned that was voiced?
You can look them up. It's What's Up With Everyone is the project. That's important to know what the project's called. What's Up With Everyone. So that's on Aardman YouTube channel, and it's also on the website www.whatsupwitheveryone.com. So we have things like, the young people told us things like competitiveness, perfectionism, independence, social media issues and challenges, and also key, loneliness and isolation. These were the 5 things that young people in transition to adulthood found particularly tricky and difficult. Obviously, in any short animation, you can't give a comprehensive take on that, but the young people set out what benefits them in terms of informations and what they wanted to convey to their peers and get conversations started. And then we had further follow-up information on the website, plus a seeking help page, should people not be quite so much upstream, but more downstream in terms of already starting to develop, concerning mental health problems.
I think I find the idea of using animation, art, and I guess fun very interesting in terms of solving mental health, because one thing that I've come across over a long time of just listening to others and my own reading is that the question you ask yourself is like, how serious should you take life and everything? And there's not like a direct answer, but I'm pretty sure it's not 100% the maximum amount all the time. Because when you're serious about everything all the time, you create this kind of brittle fragility, which you're like this rock solid personality, but then one little thing could just break you apart.
Absolutely, that's a beautiful frame that you mentioned there, Banch. It's really important that you've said that. The couple of points I would add to that is that we have to be careful about seriousness, because seriousness can also be very depressing.
In what
And
way?
while we can be preoccupied with very serious things all the time, and we don't get any joy and lightness in our lives, particularly important for young people to take the opportunities which are, shall we say, more optimistic and more enlivening, and not be kind of always put on alert all the time about everything, everything that they're facing and could face. So that's really important. I think that was part of the move really with Aardman, was to elevate knowledge at the same time as having it co-constructed. So it's young people for young people, not adult people to young people. That was quite a key move that was operating there. And joyfulness is important, and actually positive news and positive resources, things you can do, and moving away from what we see a lot of these days is the idea of resilience, individual resilience, and individuals forging their own life. I just think that's so lonely. It's so isolating, this notion that, you bear all responsibility. Everything is down to you. You need to be resilient. You need to put yourself in the picture. You need to do this. My view is that we're moving too far away from collective achievements and collective, collective life, collective and connected.
How much do you think is that's connected to people's egos, where they would like to take all the credit for something, but it could also be linked to, I guess, crippling insecurity, because you could assume that a person who wants to achieve everything and say that, oh, I achieved this, it was me and I did all the work, they can kind of say to themselves, oh, I have some sort of self-worth now because I did the thing.
Yeah. I think, Vanch, we're in a bit of a fix, I have to say. The kind of individuating everything, making it all about the individual, is big business worldwide. It's underpinned with evaluation of celebrity. Like, to be a celebrity is the ultimate, right? And being celebrated is the message. So in a world that does that, and even in our universities, in the whole setup, celebrating individual geniuses, Nobel Prize writers, people who succeed and go above and beyond, the whole caboodle is really in that mode, as it were. And then our young people, well, all of us, but particularly our young people, are then subject to that. It's like, well, how do I stand out as an individual in this world that is valuing individualism above everything, it seems? Well, I have to lean forward and be noticed. I have to be on social media. I have to have a presence. I have to, do reels every day. I have to shout about me, shout about me, shout about me. And so it's a fix, right? It's a fix. All I can say is what I say to my own children, which is, look, with your different work, the different things you're doing, the different things you're up to, just focus on the quality of that delivery. Focus on what are you making, what are you achieving in terms of quality for what you're doing, and then it's out there. It's out there, and if that comes back in a a celebrating way, a positive way, if that is something that's picked up in the bird cage of social media, well, and it is a bird cage, let me tell you. All that tweeting, as much as it seems like an opportunity, it's a cage as well. So all the noise, all that, if you enter into that, it may be good, it may not be quite so good. It can bring pains as well as pleasures, that whole world. But the main thing is, you've done your best quality in your work, whatever it is.
Hmm. I'm interested in the fact of why you refer to the social media as a birdcage.
Yeah. Okay, it's just it's the way my mind works, I think, Fanch. So I was talking about this the other day, and now I'm party to it because I'm having a conversation with you, and we're doing a kind of a podcasty thing. Part of the challenge that we have now is the world is almost over communicating. There's a proliferation of communication to the extent we don't know what all the communications are. We cannot get a full grasp on it. It seems to be both exploitatory and alarming at various turns. There is creative stuff in there, but there's also a lot of bullying and a lot of cancelling, a lot of calls to free speech when it actually, political bodies are actually removing free speech as they're claiming we need free speech, which is a very George Orwell thing that's going on in the US at the moment, is free speech, but you can't speak about climate change and you can't speak about DEI.
Yeah, so it's not very.
Yeah. So with all that cacophony is the word, all that cacophony, some of it good, some of it not so good, as we all know. It's like all this bird song going on, but it's not open bird song, because algorithms and controls from powerful groups are making a cage around that, just like a traditional old style bird cage. We're in a bird cage, for goodness sake, we're in a bird cage. And while we're all tweeting and speaking and communicating, we have to face the facts that we're being put in a bird cage by very powerful, high earning individuals.
Mm. You
work out who some of those individuals are, but if you don't think you're in a bird cage, then you I guess you might be happier in a way, because you're unassuming. You're just being a bird, just making your noise.
Yeah.
And you're getting fed, right? But I feel that freedom is very much under pressure in this world at the moment. I feel we're moving to a very constraining setup, and our young people, all of us, not just our young people, we need to get savvy and be more savvy about what's going on, how we're being algorithmically restrained, and how that is playing out now in geopolitical land and also at the more micro level in our day-to-day lives. So there's a test going on. We need to try our best to be critical voices at this time and put some checks and balances back in, because at the moment the bird cage just seems to be getting stronger.
I wonder, because I think there's always lefts and rights to most situations. I wonder in what way we could use social media as a way to benefit our lives than to use it negatively, because obviously you work in an industry where literature, arts, and all the humanities can help us improve our mental health. But that also exists on social media platforms. Like, for example, you'll be going through social media, you see a really amazing cinematic piece of work, or someone showing some piece of art, or someone speaking a poem. There's amazing pieces of art on social media as well. So I wonder how you think we should use social media in a way to benefit us.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we are. I think it's, as I said, I think it's a mixed event. We're we're benefiting from it, and also, as I say, finding ourselves somewhat in a birdcage at the same time. So I think those two things are going together, and we just need to be mindful of that. I I have well, we all have so much more in our lives because of our cultural productions, whether that's films, reading, writing, etc., etc. The world would be very difficult to be in without those things. So if we imagine tomorrow that we didn't have books, we didn't have, um, film, we didn't have dancing, we didn't have any of these expressions, these artistic expressions, it doesn't take a great deal of imagination. You don't need a randomized control trial, Vange, to work out that this is going to deplete mental health individually and collectively. So, the creative arts are, integral to our lives, to our happiness, to our sense of value, and also in connecting us with other people, seeing different perspectives. So I'm both a fiction and a non-fiction writer, which is a curious position to be in as a professional academic. It's quite a mix, but it really is important to me to explore all the different ways of considering mental health. So from a non-fiction point of view, we have the research papers, we have the books, the theory, etc. And from a fictional perspective, we have a different kind of knowledge build, which is around how we explore human consciousness, or should we say variations of human consciousness represented in fictional tales. In other words, we can get to try out a personality, a character, a situation through readerly hallucinations. By reading these fictions, we have a kind of readerly hallucination, which gets us into the shoes of other people, right? So I've just finished one, as you may know, The Wonders of Dr. Bent.
Yes.
And, that's a different kind of communication, a different kind of having a voice, kind of way of having a voice. And yeah, it's been very interesting having both tracks going.
Yeah, I looked into your book a little. I was really fascinated by the idea of revenge. So you dive into that concept in your book a little, don't you? Where
Yeah.
you had your character Jason Hemp, whose twin brother was murdered,
That's right.
and he is trying to seek revenge and find justice.
Yeah.
Why do you think we seek revenge after something happens to us?
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I guess the baseline to this from my perspective is to a large degree both my experience working in mental health for nearly 40 years now. That's how old I am. That's why that grey hair's come in, Vanch. And it's really annoying to be talking to somebody clearly so youthful. So that baseline of experience comes in on that around revenge and motivation to revenge, the damage that some people have that evokes and promotes, as it were, a less than happy response, in revenge. And then other research I've been involved in with my dear colleague in Norway, Marit Svinseth, who's an expert on human shame. We wrote a book together on humiliation, and humiliation is often overlooked in critical understandings of humans and revenge and everything else. So the research really does clearly show that humiliating others, well, you do that at your peril. When you humiliate others at an individual level, or at a group level, or at a state level, watch and see, because you will often get revenge. You will
Mm.
often get revenge. Um, it's it's an interesting area, and it's also, we should think about it a lot more in how we operate socially. Are we given to humiliative practices ourselves? And what do you expect back from that? So, for example, if you look at the research, a lot of school shootings and dark things like this, they often have their origination, shall we say,
Mm.
the turning of the person's mind often comes with a humiliating experience at school, where at a foundational level where you're just building your identity, you start to find out who you are and what's going on. You're subject to some kind of humiliation, of bullying, etc. On some ground or other. It could be, you know, gender identity, it could be racial identity, it could be any angle. But once you humiliate somebody in that very, very sensitive period, good luck, because something's coming back out of that, and sometimes it's very terrible.
Mm. I I wonder if that's nature or nurture, whether the person is just destined to be like that. Because I reckon there's different ways that the situation could have gone. Because there's multiple scenarios where someone could be bullied or humiliated in school and not go down the dark path.
Great. No, great, great. This is a really interesting area. So, nature and nurture are clearly part of the deal. Okay. Your brain is not your own, Vanch. I'm sorry to break the news. Okay. So, you think the brain is your own, but of course, your brain operates without you as a consciousness.
Mm.
Your brain does things that you couldn't even calculate in a what should I say, in a conscious way. Okay. So a lot of people don't realize that. Sometimes people kind of don't think about the fact that their whole body, the brain, the whole thing is a given. You know, it's a product of which they have not um, directly involved themselves, but then afterwards subject to nurture around them, and also to their own self-nurturing and their own progression with what they've got. So it's always a combination, right? Always a combination. How much you're destined is always an interesting kind of philosophical point. You know, is anybody destined to be anything at any time? You know, there's, in the past there's been talk about people, have been like a bad seed. You just set up wrong. You're a wrong one, and you're going to go wrong whatever happens to you, etc., etc. And some people who are humiliated in actuality don't choose to be humiliated. They don't choose to be ashamed. They don't own it. So there is this crossover point where some people might be more vulnerable to humiliation, kind of provoking a violent or aggressive response, whereas others may actually uh, dis, um, uh, take themselves out of that and may say, "I'm not owning that." You know, I'm refusing to be humiliated. So there will be cases, you'll see that in life. There will be cases where everybody thinks, "Oh my God, he must be or she must be so humiliated,"
Mm.
and the person comes back and says, "No, I'm not. I choose whether I'm humiliated." So that's an interesting
Yeah,
differentiation, I think. Yeah.
I was wondering when we was while you were speaking about it, is if there's certain people who are a bit more sensitive to humiliation, or the quote, like, you're a bad seed. If that gets chucked around a lot to someone who is more prone to go down said bad path, I wonder if the way that people direct words towards that person had effect on it. So by that I mean is, like, if they continue to reinforce to this person that you are a bad seed, and you react in XYZ way, then they might think that they are unable to change who they are now and the way they react to situations because everyone else reinforces the fact that they're like this. I wonder how much of an effect that would have on the person themselves. Because if people otherwise were to say, like, encourage the fact that this situation you don't have to own it, would that drive them down a different path versus reinforcing the fact that they're a bad seed?
I mean, all the interaction between, if we just step away from the bad seed idea a little, all the interactions that we have can make a huge difference. And sometimes it could be the briefest interaction that can set us one way or another in our thinking about ourselves. And uh, however old you are, and look at me compared to you, we all have vulnerabilities, right? We all have weak points that we see in ourselves and perhaps other people see in us. We're always reshaping ourselves and trying to figure out who we are in this changing world from moment to moment. So it's quite a difficult ask to find the flow of cause and effect, with anybody's life. But what is clear to me, and this is a simple analogy, is, and I've had this when I've been doing talks around the world. I mean, mostly I'm looked after beautifully by people inviting me, and they put me up in a lovely hotel and all that sort of thing, bunch. And I have the energy, and I feel comfortable, and I feel loved and looked after, and I think I can produce better, give better value for the ideas because of that. But then there will be the odd time, and we probably all had this experience if we're moving about, where you go to the terrible hotel, you go to the awful hotel where there's something at the end of the bed that hasn't been made properly, and there's black mold in the shower, right? and that simple context can make you feel quite low. It can make you feel quite like, a kind of a reflection of who you are, and like maybe you're not worth anything. And the environment can actually communicate to you, maybe you're not worth anything. You're low value, right? Now, you just big that analogy up into the bigger sphere. People who are impoverished, people who can only eat one meal a day, people who have got psychosis, people who have got, £10 for the month, right? You big it up and you imagine what's communicated back to that individual about their worth. It takes a great deal of effort to raise your game, to raise yourself beyond that condition. So I think there are many people who are subject to such difficulty on a day-to-day basis that it's very difficult for them, if you will, to arrange their own identity so positively. It's a big effort. And I think being aware of that is really important in living our life. Being aware that, like, you find somebody who's really angry, for example, or is quite dismissive, or, doesn't want to know, or is a bit like picky, if you've said something, they're onto it, right? You have to kind of come back from that and say, why is this person in this state today? Instead of taking it personally, why is this person so angry today? Maybe they've lost someone dear to them, or maybe something's happening at home, or, are they okay? So we're in a kind of a world where I think there's a lot of blame going on. There's a lot of shame going on, shaming going on. There's a lot of cancelling going on. Did you make a misstep? Oh, we're going to get you. We're going to get you. And in that environment, it seems there's less and less of this kind of, why is this person so angry? Are they okay? That's where I am with this. So I don't believe in bad seeds. I think my view would be, you're going to have some challenges just from your embodied self that comes out without your permission. You are without permission, in a way. You come into the world, you're not giving your permission for that. When we exist, when we come in, we exist, and we had no direct part in the decision. It was other people, our parents, right? Maybe they didn't quite directly decide either. It was part of the biological play. Okay, so we're here now, and this is what we got. We got a brain that's not our own, that we're working with, and we got a nurturing environment or a non-nurturing environment, depending on where we've popped out.
Right. Okay.
And from then on, there's it's a mystery tour, isn't it? Where's it going to go? What are we going to be? What can we be? And how can we increase the connection with ourselves and in a positive way going forward? And for a lot of people, they get a bad deal, and those who haven't had a bad deal, I think there's an onus on them to be more compassionate and more understanding. And what I'm hearing now at the moment in this particular time in this world is a lot of blaming, a lot of attacking others, a lot of us and them. They're causing the trouble. We're the good ones. All this sort of divisive, almost, I don't know. It's so dull, right? It's so dull. It's like we're missing the opportunities to understand others, and we just want to put them in the bin all the time.
I think it's an interesting topic to talk on, because I think it all links onto perspective.
It all links under
to perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in one of the books I was reading, The Courage to be Disliked, it talks about the fact that we all own our own sort of objective world and we view it in a certain way, but there's no way we can show anyone else that view that we have on the world. And it links to another thing I read in another book called The Normal Person Paradox, where we all think that the way that we look at the world and the way the world looks at us is the same that for everyone else that
which is
exists, which is not true. The thing is about the us and them mentality is, again, as I said, perspective. And one thing I've written down here is the Greek word for good was agathon, and which just means beneficial. Which in general just has no moral meaning. It doesn't mean good or bad. It just means useful to the individual. And the word for evil in Greek was called kakon, which means not beneficial. Again, no moral meaning. It just means it's not useful or it's useful. So it kind of dismisses the idea that evil even exists. But to the individual, they're just moving towards their goals. It's just what's beneficial to them and not what's beneficial to the other person. So it's not about the us and them. It's just the perspective is that they think that what they're doing is beneficial to them, and the other side think that what they're doing is beneficial to them.
Yeah.
So
I think all these kinds of encapsulations and summaries for what's happening here are quite helpful, because they give us some stepping stones in our building ideas about the world and about our place in the world, and what we can do and what we perhaps find difficult to do. So I think it's a bit like orientation is what you're posing there. We do need some means of orientating how we're working in the world and the different parameters for that, the different pushes and pulls of that. So I think that's a decent stepping out of perhaps a more emotive frame of good and evil, and that may be a religious, spiritual frame of good and evil, and moving away from that to almost a more procedural view of this is to the benefit, this isn't to the benefit. I think a lot of people do actually come off the good and evil chant, as you might think of it, you know, to see things in that kind of way. That, you know, people negotiating their space and place, and that it's of benefit perhaps to them individually, or their family, or their kin, or those that they love, or those that they regard as important. Um, so yeah, I think quite a lot of people probably do that. They probably come down from that kind of very emotive posture of good, evil,
Yeah.
yeah, the battle, and they come down to that more mundane frame of
Mm.
benefit or no benefit. Interesting.
Yeah, that I think that's yeah. Uh, I do want to go back into the previous conversation we were having, just a bit about the loneliness.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to talk about is that there seems to be a pretty widespread loneliness epidemic, I guess, in the more recent years, where people struggle to find others who relate to them, and it's the entire individuality thing. It's like, oh, I'm so different and I'm unique, and we struggle to find people who would relate to us. And this generation tends to be like the more self-aware generation, I guess. Do you think, because we tend to be, I guess, a little more deeper thinkers, do you think it's inevitable for deep thinkers to be lonely?
Well, y- I would I would say that deep thinking's probably always been there, Vansh, right back to the, you know, the caves and the paintings on the cave walls and everything. I think it I don't think the deep thinking's changed. I think the context for deep thinking has changed, if that makes sense. So, like, once technology rolled, as it did, and now intensifying in all kinds of new and uh, unusual ways, I would say, that context is changing the deep thinking that goes on, or the deep thinking is informed by previous deep thinking, you know, accumulated over the centuries. So I think it probably for me, I think that there are categorically there's categorically a different period that's going on now, from the point of technological advance, from the point of proliferation of ideas, and from the point of, like, how any individual can stand within that and negotiate for themselves what they're thinking, what they're doing, how they make sense of that. I think that's possibly the biggest challenge, is the extrapolation in the real, you know, with AI, with everything coming in, with the share of knowledge, the share of ideas being so intense. um, the the brains that we have, um, I don't think they're geared uh, to respond to that,
Mm,
um, and therefore it's almost as if what we're making is leaving us behind.
I
Uh,
see.
and I wonder whether that means we're, as you said, the word destined at the if we pitch on um, destination, I think we're possibly destined to be um, less powerful individually as populations in this world, because increasingly it's a smaller population who seem to be cohering the power around them at this point. Um, and also um, possibly more reflective populations, as our making outstrips our ability to join it, as it were. to, that our brains have been left behind, as it were. um, I think maybe we will be destined to be more reflective individuals, but I'm not sure that um, that's going to be something we can predict easily. I think the change is coming so fast, it's really hard to predict how any of us individually will be placed in the next short number of years. Actually, the acceleration is so intense now that maybe the next 10 years will be illuminatory. I hope it's illuminatory in a positive way. But it's probably it's going to be a bit of both. I think it's going to be mixed.
Okay, that's an interesting topic side to go on. I haven't really looked too much into just the kind of place we'll be in as AI or technology kind of makes its way past us, which inevitably I think it would.
Well, I think it'll go past us in certain ways. I mean, we are embodied AI anyway, aren't we? We're embodied AI. The disembodied AI is going to go past us. It already has in many areas. You know, in the world of chess, we're now dependent on embodied chess to get our measure from, because chess players have already been, put onto the canvas. They've already been defeated in that sense through the technology, in a technical sense. But in an embodied play, in over the table chess with another embodied being, the level is still kept, and the competition still holds. But it's already gone beyond.
One thing I did notice is when AI tends to, I guess the main thing was that people were concerned about is like what AI would take over and what it wouldn't take over. I think the main conclusion I came across was communities. I think you can't AI community.
Well, I think the gloves are off, if I can use a conflictual idea.
Yeah.
The gloves are off in this regard. We simply do not know what AI can deliver yet. We're just on the start of an understanding, I think, about its power. We haven't yet worked out what its impacts will be and how much it will change. I mean, I was in Taiwan recently, and I was served by a robot my hot pot.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and we can see advantages here for technologies, particularly because of the high cost of human care. One-to-one human care, particular conditions and challenges for any economy to meet the need of populations on a number of levels. As we're getting older and surviving longer, we're also there's also a chronic health issue to be covered. So it's very tricky. I think some of the technology will help here at the level of care. It will also help, I believe, in terms of, I guess, solutions for our biologies. I guess in terms of our bodies and ailments and so on, there will be new solutions. So it's a mixed bag. We just don't know how that will pan out for our identity development or sustaining our identities. And we don't know if that will make us more individuated or collective. Will it actually atomize, or will it bring us together? Will it allow a reflective community to grow that isn't so dependent on all this tasking and doing? And maybe the AI will sort quite a lot of that to the point that we have more leisure time. But will that leisure be pleasure, is the question.
Yeah. Very, very, very interesting stuff. I do want to go on like a little bit of a different sort of topic.
What a wonderful conversation you're starting, Bams. You you're posing things that I never expected this afternoon, and it's really interesting to try and sort of work out where your mind is going, because that we're all locked out, aren't we? And we can only get in through this type of method, which is conversing and sharing our voices. Yeah.
Thank you very much. That means a lot. But the topic I wanted to get into is kind of also related to your book again, where you talked about. I guess you kind of delve into the concept of like your past and how your past shapes you.
Yeah.
I wanted to know, first of all, how does our past shape us, and secondly, how can someone who is dwelling so much on past events not be ruled by what's happened in the past so they can move forward in the future?
Well, I mean, that's really quite nicely put, I have to say, Vanch, in terms of that dynamic. So everything, I guess, comes from something, So, like, if we talk about the wonders of Dr. Benz as a fiction, as a it's a novel, it's fiction, because all fiction is to some extent driven by the life and the experiences, what you heard, what you experienced in your own life, and so on. So all fiction is necessarily, understandably, partly autobiographical. In that sense, you you're looking out into the world, you're experiencing events, you're experiencing pleasures and pains in your own life, um, and these are foundational to your ideas and forming ideas, and also to the creative effort of, for example, writing a fiction. So, I mean, you mentioned Jason Hemp, who is an English lecturer who tries to track down his twin brother's killer, and he gets entangled, shall we say? I won't give any spoilers, Vanj, but he gets entangled in a world he doesn't really see until finally he sees it, if that makes sense. And his world comes into the world of Dr. Bent, who is an unlikely goth psychiatrist who's highly intelligent, successful, despite his appearance, dressing in a gothic way, with ringlets and tattoos and dark clothing, and riding a Harley motorbike. He's not the idea for most people of a leading medical director of a high security establishment, right? But of course, I have met people working in professional mental health who, if you like, you can't judge them by their cover, as they say. Rather, like you can't judge a book by its cover. You can't judge character necessarily by the person's fashion and how they appear and so on. So Dr. Bent is a character I was very interested in providing in this fiction, because he is not expected, and he's a reforming medic, and he tries to make a high security hospital more humane and more comfortable and less prison like, which is a controversial move, of course, and especially so in our period, where people with mental health, especially severe mental health issues, who do terrible things, are basically thrown straight in the bin, or people want to have the death penalty back, etc., etc. So it's quite controversial position to take with that character, trying to reform that environment. But all of that comes very much from my lived experience and what I've seen in my life. How else would it come out? How else would you write if you didn't write from things you know about to some extent? And then Dr. Bent is a wounded healer, Vanch. She's a wounded healer, as many people in mental health are wounded healers. In other words, he's had I don't want to give any spoilers here, but he's had a significant adverse event, serious events in his own life, and those have shaped his compassion for others who are broken and in need. So it's a very interesting coming together of the writer and the written, I would say. In The Wonders of Dr. Bent, I think I have a convergence there between the life lived and the life written, if that makes sense. It's a thriller, isn't it? It's a switchback thriller. It's not really what I call a donut, which is like an airport novel thriller, exciting. But I think it's more of a literary thriller. I would say is probably a better position for it. And I hope people find it both thoughtful and also useful in trying to get into the mindset of characters who are living differently, perhaps to you as a reader, and that gives some indication about survival and recovery despite trauma.
Very, very interesting. The kind of role that I think literature plays, at least in terms of, I guess, our mental health, is very interesting. I think, especially language, being able to read a variety of books and different genres, you kind of expand your horizon on the way that you can express things. And I think that's really important, especially when it comes to mental health, because the more that we expand our horizon in language or the things that we know, the more we can express the way that we feel things.
Absolutely, yes. So my youngest daughter is only 2. You may have heard her if you're watching this podcast. You may have heard her coming in at one point, but she's walking AI language learner, and she's starting to put the bricks on top of one, how to make the sentences go and everything else. So she has a certain range there of concepts and ideas that she's playing with, like building blocks. And of course, as you proceed further, if you give yourself the chance and if other people give you the context and the chance, the vocabulary expands, the ideas that come with different phrasing and different speaking grows. And this is where you open up the ground for deep thinking, because you have to play with something, and words and ideas are where we play, and it's where we build things we haven't thought about before. So it goes 2 ways, right? It goes in and it goes out. So it's both reception and thoughtfulness, and then production as well. So it's an amazing thing. I'm really enjoying actually watching her language learning. If you can watch language learning, if you get my drift.
Yes, yeah. I've been really intrigued in the idea of the way that our childhood can shape us and the way that we learn things when we're growing up. One thing that I found which is so incredibly awesome about humans is the fact that when we're growing up, we can learn things organically while doing something else. So as a kid, you could be doing a handstand and still be learning the English language at the same time, which is so interesting. But then
Is this what you did, Vanj?
My own research.
No, is this what you did? Learning upside down.
Learning upside down? No. I just mean in general. They could be doing some other task and still be learning at the same time. But when I noticed just the ways that in other ways that the way that we react in certain situations, or the way that we deal with, for example, our romantic relationships, can be completely due to the way that we were growing up as children. So
right.
Yeah.
We are we are layered throughout our life, and the early layers are in our childhood. So that will put down a set of markers, emotional, intellectual, and so on. And also in terms of the horizons of what's possible, what's out there, where can I go, what can I do? So all those early layers, they can, should we say, ossify and close down options, or they can open up and be quite energetic and dynamic and outward reaching. And of course, they can be free of trauma or free of major trauma, but they can also be absolutely pummeled and devastated by trauma as well. And then what comes after that? What do you think comes after that? I think I'm really surprised that adverse childhood events and traumas are backgrounded when people come to try and understand other people's actions.
Hmm.
There seems to be like a determination to dispose of all these early layers as not significant because the person did something terrible and therefore we put them in the bin. And I don't want to hear what happened in their childhood, this kind of right-wing stuff that's going on now, I don't want to hear about that. I don't want to take that on board. Let's just bring back the death sentence for them.
Yeah. The lack of
Too abstract.
no, of course not. It's just it's a very interesting thing that we just don't take into account the importance that I guess our past holds over us. As you said, it's layers, and it's we can accept the fact that people can change, but it's also important to understand why someone is a certain way because I'll go into like a relationship context, for example. So say you're in a relationship with someone and they don't like opening up about their emotions. They don't like speaking or like expressing their own thoughts in the way that they feel. Instead of shunning the person, calling them a bad communicates and they can't do X, Y, and Z, it's important to understand that there was probably some point in that person's life where that action of not speaking about your emotions and holding it all in made sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a living example because I publicly declared that I was abused as a child. Yeah.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, well, who wouldn't be? I mean, so the only reason I'm kind of chuckling on that is that I'm much further away from that calamity. So I've kind of come out of the devastation and the crater that it formed, still smoking. I think still smoking. You can envisage it. I'm sure all the contemporary media channels have lots of this kind of real image going on in this world, but at a psychological level, with the help of dear and chosen family, I was enabled to crawl out of that crater. And so I'm a long way from it now. But the devastation that happens to people can be very real. And the effort required from communities, not just from individuals, to respond to that and to actually get on with their lives is profound. And not everybody is in a context or a supportive frame to be able to get forward again after such a devastation. So yeah, I'm very sad that in all kinds of different ways, early trauma is having such a difficult impact on people's bodies and minds, and I would hope that the thinking majority, the truly thinking majority in the world, will continue to push back on the unthinking minority that are coming forward now and seeming to take the airwaves.
Wow. Uh, Paul, this conversation has been amazing. I think I've learned a lot from you. You're a very great conversationalist as well.
Well, I was thinking the same, Vansh. I mean, your questions and your thinking, what you're thinking about is really pertinent, and I hope people who watch the podcast get a sense that whatever the traumas, and there are many traumas, um, there are opportunities to recover. There are opportunities to survive, and the collective way, the community way, and the compassionate way is our only hope.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. Where should people go to see what you're getting up to?
Well, I mean, in terms of my own work, I guess, I mean, I've written far too many research papers, and none of my students get up in the morning and say, "Oh, I must read the latest research paper." If people want to read my longer work, then go to www.paulcrawfordauthor.com. They can see the books that I've been doing and the book series I've been doing. Yeah, and find out more there. But yeah, if you get a chance, to read The Wonders of Dr. Bent, I may be able to afford a flat white from all the royalties.
Paul Crawford, thank you very much for being on.